Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today to explore women leaders in customer experience. My name is Laura Fraser, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. I currently lead our new services launches for new applications at AWS, one of which you may have heard of yesterday called AWS Supply Chain. And I've spent the last couple of years in the Amazon Connect organization, and we'll talk a little bit about Amazon Connect, which is our easy-to-use cloud contact center solution. But we'll talk about that a little bit later in the session, and you'll see that it's the common thread amongst this fabulous panel of women that I get to share the stage with today. So what we're going to talk about is their career journeys. We're going to also talk about a very important topic, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then we're going to round it out with their journeys to improve customer experience in their organizations. So without further ado, ladies, come join the stage. Welcome. All right, so first, let's start with some quick intros to you, your role, and your company, and we'll just go straight down the line. Delia.
Thanks, Laura. Good afternoon. My name is Delia Medina. I'm the VP of Customer Care Innovation with First Advantage. For those of you that don't know, First Advantage is a global background and drug screening company, and our mission is to help our customers hire smarter and onboard faster. I'm responsible for digital transformation, automation, and process improvement. I like to consider my team enablers of customer care. We have responsibility for things such as quality, training, analytics, workforce management, and of course, customer satisfaction. I've been in the service space my entire career. Absolutely love what I do. I've been in a couple of different industries and different verticals, and I'm honored to be here today.
Thank you. Hexen.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hexen Wilson, and I am the VP of Customer Experience and Servicing at Saks. What does that mean? It means that anything or anytime a customer places an online order at Saks, we take care of them whenever they encounter an issue. So I think a lot of you probably already have heard of Saks Fifth Avenue. We are the ultimate destination for luxury fashion. We're here to help customers express themselves through fashion, as well as offer a place for you to discover new trends for designers that you already love, as well as designers you may not already heard of.
Great. Kim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Honeywell. I am AVP of Strategic Solutions for Symetra. I'm responsible for enterprise CRM and our contact center solutions. Symetra we're an insurance company based out of Bellevue, Washington, and we offer employee benefits, life insurance, and annuities.
Very good. Joanna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Bird. I'm the VP of Sales for AWS at Neuroflash. Neuroflash is both an AWS and Salesforce consulting partner, an implementation partner. We focus on the contact center and help customers with their end-to-end journey, advisory, and implementation for customer experience transformation.
Excellent. So here's our panel. All right, now let's talk a little bit about your unique journeys and your careers and some interesting moves you've each made to propel your careers. Kim, we're going to start with you. You've spent the majority of your career in the customer relationship management or CRM realm. Tell us about the strategic initiative you're currently leading and how you navigated to this role.
Great, yeah. Well, the initiative I'm currently leading involves a couple of major technology changes for Symetra. We're migrating from an old CRM to Salesforce, and we are moving from an on-premise telephony system to Amazon Connect. And so when we started looking at the customer journey, we were looking at it, the full customer experience. Those two technologies go hand in hand. So given my experience with CRM, it made sense for one leader to kind of be responsible for that end-to-end experience.
Very good. We're going to stick with you for a moment. You also made a strategic move just prior to this role where you shed some of your responsibilities to allow for greater focus. Can you tell us about that risky move and how that paid off?
Yeah. Well, there's been a couple of times over the last few years where my responsibilities expanded and my role just kind of varied, and I've just felt like I wasn't quite able to provide the focus I needed to on any one thing. And so what I did was I gave things up. And it allowed me to, just provide more focus on certain aspects of my work. It gave me better job satisfaction and made me more effective.
Yeah, and that was risky to say, maybe I have too much, but
Yeah.
to be able to take that on and then look what it led to. Yeah, that's great. All right, Delia, then Hexon. You've both had a variety of different roles at big companies like J&J and JP Morgan Chase. Can you share how those experiences shaped your career direction and leadership style?
Great question. So I spent almost 8 years with Johnson & Johnson, and I held a variety of roles across customer service, sales support, and contract administration. And that opportunity really shaped me and my career. I was fortunate enough to participate in some pretty big projects, including a global SAP implementation and a couple of integrations in terms of M&As. And that really served as the catalyst for my passion in terms of people, process, and technology, which I've adopted as my go-to and my approach when I'm faced with a new challenge or with a new opportunity. I was also fortunate enough to participate in some great leadership and development programs with the focus on really creating high-performance teams. I was exposed to some really great leaders and some that were not so great, and I learned equally from both, and I have to say it's really shaped me into the leader that I am today. I guess my golden rule, if you will, is always be authentic and true to myself. Treat people with respect and dignity at all times, regardless of the circumstances.
Very good. Hexon, how about you?
Yeah, so how many of you work for a large company? Raise your hands. All right, and how many of you are looking for a transition into a different role or a promotion? And when you're working for a large corporation, I think you are among hundreds or thousands of people who have similar interest in terms of advancing their career. So the key is, how do you stand out and get onto the fast track for your career and be able to build a role that you are looking for? So from my experience, rarely do I get a great role landed on my lap, right? So what has happened to me is that I actively seek out gaps and really look at solutions to solve for those, as well as be brave about pitching those ideas to the senior leadership and take ownership to execute on that. Now, sometimes you are doing a little bit of extra work because that specific opportunity or the role may not be completely related to what you're doing right now, but I promise you, that's a natural way to expand your scope, so therefore you're already operating at that capacity, and therefore you're able to either transition smoothly or able to get to your next promotion a little bit more quicker.
That's great, and I see that as a theme across all of our panelists. So Joanna, we're going to go to you next. You learned a valuable lesson early in your career when you invested in launching a new business. What did you learn from that experience, and tell us how that experience led you to the tech industry?
Yeah, so about 8 years ago, I went into business with a friend and a colleague. And, transparently, what I learned was that I did not do enough homework, did not ask enough questions, and trusted in like a friendship or good intentions more than I should have. So I was very short into the venture. I knew I had probably made a pretty bad mistake, but trudge forward, see it through. About a year into working there, corporate had launched a new update to our software policy software, and it included the implementation of DocuSign as part of our process. And I'm sitting in the office, like, raving about this tool. Like, oh, everybody signs so fast, customers love it. I mean, I just, like, geeking out over this software. And my business partner, and quickly becoming, like, no longer a friend anymore, says kind of like in a childish voice, well, if you love DocuSign so much, you should just go work there. And I did. I I walked out the door. I went straight to DocuSign HQ, got myself a job at DocuSign. It was my start in software. Shortly after that, AWS recruiting called, and kind of like the rest of my tech launch is history. And so, obviously I learned a lot through that experience, cried to my parents. I thought I was done for at a very early age, and was like, no, that huge step backwards ended up being the launch into arguably, what will be the future for me, and I'm really excited about it. I mean, there's just like endless innovation in this industry.
Very cool. Love that story. All right, so let's shift gears and talk about women in leadership and diversity. And I work for AWS, so we ground everything in data and facts. So I want to share a few with you. The first is that the stats come from Kauffman Foundation, a US-based nonprofit whose research was published in Forbes magazine. So here we go. Private technology companies led by women are more capital efficient, achieving 35% higher ROI. And when venture-backed, delivered 12% higher revenue than those run by men. And specifically, in First Round Capital's portfolio, women-founded companies outperform companies founded by men by 63%. Pretty impressive stats, right? Yeah, you can applaud. Yeah. So Kim, Symetra has received some very notable recognition for their commitment to women in leadership. Can you share more?
Yeah, happy to. So this year, Symetra was recognized by Fortune magazine and Great Places to Work as one of the top places for women to work. Over 90% of our employees say it's a great place to work. Our leaders are getting recognized as well. Mindy Work, who is the EVP of our individual life division, was honored this year. She was one of 12 honorees for the Women in Insurance Leadership Award. And then personally, I have just been very fortunate to work with a number of really strong, incredible female leaders. Our CEO is a woman, and a number of our top leaders are women. It's great, when you have that mentorship and those champions in your company. I think it becomes infectious and spreads across the organization.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later because there were multiple women to pick from Symetra that could speak here today. So right. That is a great accomplishment. And there's one, I just have to call out one quote from Mindy Work, their SVP and Chief Strategy Officer. She says, "We believe that culture and strategy are mutually reinforcing. If not, they will be simultaneously defeating." Pretty cool quote, love that. All right, so Hexen, one of your companies implemented a leadership program for women in technology. Can you tell us about that, your experience with that program?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the companies I used to work for had a global presence throughout the world where technology teams are in various countries. And to recognize female leaders or female technologists, we had a nomination program where 30 females were nominated to come to New York 3 times of that year. And whenever we got together, we learned about leadership sessions or leadership qualities. We met a lot of leadership, technology executive members, as well as learn about different areas, their career path as well. And at the end of it, we were divided up into groups and worked on an actual problem for the business. That was a tremendous experience in my entire career because I was able to work with other strong female leaders that I would never be able to work with if I were just working on the same domain in my existing role. So that was a huge success in terms of the program, and because of that, based on my understanding just a few years ago, they have opened it up to everyone. And of course, still keeping a diversity ratio in mind.
Yeah, that's an excellent story, and I loved how they worked on a problem together. How often are you in these programs where you're either working on fictitious things or you're getting sort of mentoring and coaching, but you bring those bright minds together, why not solve a problem? Yeah, love that. So we want to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion here because it's a really important topic and it's so much broader than just women. We've come a long way, but there actually is a lot more work to be done. And I, for one, would welcome the day when there was just one box to check on a survey or a form, and it just said human race, right? So that's where diversity is the norm, and we don't need to track numbers to justify that we're providing opportunity for all. But alas, we are not there yet. And I've heard some really clear themes amongst our panel here about your support for DE&I in your own organizations. And Delia, I'm going to turn to you first. You've been a strong voice for going beyond the numbers. Tell us more.
Yeah, so diversity, equity, and inclusion does go far beyond just counting the number of women that we have in leadership roles. And I have personal experience in that, having been with an organization that had a dedicated women's leadership initiative. And I took full advantage of it. I won't deny that. But as a Latina, I needed more. It wasn't enough. And I recall having a conversation with the CEO at the time where I asked the question and asked what his plan was to address the gap. He was caught off guard by my question, wasn't quite prepared for it, and turned around and asked me instead what I thought we should do about it. A little disappointed with the response, not quite what I was looking for. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, in my opinion, needs to start at the top. It needs to be intentional and focused. You should have a dedicated leader who is really going to be the champion and drive the ownership and accountability as well as the cultural changes that really will impact and affect change. I will say that I've recently spoken to a colleague there and they have started a DE&I committee. In fact, she's the co-chair and one of the very few African American women leaders in the organization, if not the only one. They've spearheaded a couple of affinity groups, and so they are making strides in the right direction, and I think many organizations are. But to your point, we've got a long ways to go and a lot of work ahead of us.
Hexen and then Joanna, you've both seen success with broadening the DE&I lens to welcome all, regardless of experience levels. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me, when I look for a candidate, a lot of times I don't look for lots and years of specific experience in that field. What I look for is candidates who are curious and also have the tenacity to learn and passionate about the domain and of course competent. And a story about myself, right? I truly believe in pay it forward. So when I started my career, after working for 4 years as an individual contributor, again, going back to earlier when I talk about pitching, identifying gap and pitching an idea, I realized in this organization, or in that particular organization, there wasn't a team or discipline from a business analysis standpoint. And I pitched that to the managing director in that company, and I was able to obtain a role to build entire practice, hiring and build the team from scratch. So I definitely want to pay that forward because what happens is that with fresh people, fresh mindset, you're able to have fresh perspective, right? And then you're able to have a different lens in terms of looking at the problem and solving the problem in a complete different new way. Oh, and then I do have to say one more thing is even in this role, right? I did not come from a space that I've had 20 years of operations experience in contact center. I was a technologist. So again, even with Saks Fifth Avenue, I was able to obtain this position because people believed in my potential and my passion towards fashion and customer experience.
Very cool. Love that. Joanna.
Yeah, NeuroFlash has been a welcomed surprise. Certainly, I had an idea of what the culture was going to be like, having been at AWS and worked with them as a partner on projects with me. Through the interview process, you start to gain a little insight, but you never know until you get there and you start. And starting with the leadership team and the hiring managers, they set the tone for who we hire, the diversity in the workspace, and the culture that NeuroFlash has. One of the things that I have specifically just noticed, kind of kept as a marker in my own, for my future, is that the leadership team regardless of age or experience, that doesn't necessarily dictate if they're the best person for the role. So like Hexen just said, being curious, being a builder, those are some traits that are maybe outside of what your age or your experience shows on paper. So at NeuroFlash, it's more about, that desire to learn, grow with the company, as opposed to, age, sex, race, or any of the other things that go into D&I.
Yeah, very cool. Kim, you have had a great success story from your team. Tell us about Allison Buss and how you've supported her career growth.
Well, one of the things I am most proud of with the work I've been doing this past year is the number of people who've had opportunities to learn new skills. We've had people from non-technical roles learning to become admins in both Salesforce and Amazon Connect. Allison is a product owner on my team, and she, a while back, we were setting up Amazon Connect for a small contact center, kind of as a pilot. We had no one with any experience with the technology, and so Allison was up to the challenge. She took the AWS courses, and within a few weeks was able to build us a pretty basic contact center. So it's been really neat to see people kind of step out of their comfort zones and being able to take on new challenges with the technology.
That's great, and a great testament to how easy it is to use Connect.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. All right, so we would be remiss if we didn't talk about women, moms, and their career. And so Delia, you're a single mom of twin boys. Tell us more about your perspective on parenting and career.
Oh boy. I will say that they're 20 years old now and they're juniors in college, so I did something right as a single mom. I think in order to find that balance as a working mom and a professional, if you will, is a network, right? Both a personal network and a professional network. And being a planner, right? You have to have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C because when one fails, you need a backup. But most importantly, it's really about setting the example for my children. And I have a quick little story. As I said, they're juniors and they're both in fraternities. And my son out in San Diego State decided to run for president of his fraternity and shared that he, it's funny, he said, Mama, I did it because, well, you're going to go up on that panel and you're going to get in front of people and you're going to talk. And I want to do the same thing. If you could do it, I could do it. I'm like, well, you're 20, so light years away in terms of experience. But yeah, it's really leading by example, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so one last topic, and you just touched on it, so thank you for the transition. Before we move on to customer experience, let's talk about the power of the network. And we have quite a lot to say about this today. So Hexen, can you share some insights about building relationships sideways, not just up?
Yeah, so I think often we are so worried about creating a positive relationship with only our direct manager. But I think you can effectively manage your career and your visibility by managing sideways, and also your matrix managers. So we all work in companies where we don't achieve a goal or finish a project alone, rarely, right? We're always working with other teams. Now, when you seek that win-win situation and you're able to achieve a goal, I think the key here is to give the credit where it's due. Send a recognition email. I just really enjoy working with so-and-so, and we were able to achieve X, Y, Z, and thank you so much, and we're able to bring all these business value. In those type of recognitions, you're also including their bosses, your boss, right? And what's gonna happen is also reflecting you as a leader, and when you do that more and more, people are gonna start doing the same thing for you, recognition-wise, right? So that is just becoming a snowball effect. And I do have to say that from a networking standpoint, I wanna even go beyond just lateral or within your company from a matrix standpoint, is outside of your company. So we're all here at the AWS reInvent, and it's a perfect opportunity for you to meet people outside of your company, and there are a ton of events in the evening for you to network and meet other people. So personally, I consider myself an introvert. So going to these events, I do have to tell you, it is not the easiest thing for me. I give myself a prep talk, but I always go, and guess what? I have never, ever regretted. So with that said, even after this session, if any of you want to have a chat, meet, I'll be here, and I'd love to meet some of you.
Awesome. Yeah, I just have to interject. There's an experience that I had when I worked for Microsoft for a number of years, and I left and I joined a company called Sage over in the UK. And I knew that being one of the few VPs in the US would be a challenge working for a UK-based company. So my first trip over there, I asked for a bit of forgiveness from my boss, and I said, I'm going to go meet every single senior leader in the company. And he said, well, what are you going to talk to them about? You're new here, you don't know anything yet, you don't have a plan. And I said, no, I'm doing it to put a pin in, on their radar, because I'm going to be back. Because I knew what I was going to do there was going to have an effect on everything within the company. And it really paid dividends, so that later, it only took about 15 minutes of their time, just said, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, what's important to you, how do I work with you? But I was able to come back later when I said, okay, we're going to launch this new service, and I need the support organization, or I need the professional services organization to get behind this. The product would never have launched without all of them buying in and just being able to have those conversations. And he came back to me that night at dinner and said, I don't know what happened today, but everybody's talking about you. Who are you? Who's this Laura person, and what's she going to do here? So really important to build those kind of sideways relationships. They pay dividends in lots of different ways. All right. Joanna, you have found ways to advocate for women through your career and extracurriculars. Through the through the power of your network, we are all here today. So Joanna and I worked together when she was at AWS. I had a little bit to do with helping her land the role at NeuroFlash, and just a little bit. And I just loved working with NeuroFlash as well. But tell us more about your experience there with the network.
Yeah, a little bit of background. So even though I'm not as tall as Laura, I did grow up in a gym with my two sisters because my mom was our head coach in our hometown. And so very early on, I was exposed to really strong, confident women through athletics. And I went on, I played college basketball, and the side hustle is always to referee. So I'm refereeing on the side, and through those experiences, I started to just really gain a passion for helping organizations and being a little bit disruptive where I could. So joining a alumni association or a women's sports advocacy board, went out to Seattle and actually took on a little bit of a challenge to take their referee organization, which was split between men and women, and merge that sucker together, and became the first woman on that board. Within a couple of years, had the majority vote of women on that board. So I really kind of goes without saying, take the opportunity to find places where I can advocate for women's groups or athletics or things of that nature. So the story here is that I am 3 months on at NeuroFlash, maybe, and I'm sitting in an executive call with Symetra, Kim and company, and there's all women on the call, every single person. And so I'm this is great. I don't know who this company is, but flag them as the next place that I can go, and because they're all women, so it's awesome culture. And then virtual hallways, you hear about Hexen and Saks, and Dolly at First Advantage, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can advocate for these women to tell their story on this stage. And then for me, it was just passing the ball back to you and Magda to help make it happen.
Yeah, it was awesome. And when she said that, she's like, there's so many, we can't fit them all on stage here. So she is the common thread between all these companies. And I might as well ask the question now, ladies, why did you choose to work with NeuroFlash? Because I'm sure the audience wants to know that.
It's a great question. Clearly, the partnership, the collaboration, knowing that we were moving towards Amazon Connect and the relationship with AWS, our relationship with Salesforce, their preferred vendor, it just made sense for us. And they were the right size company for us. They're nimble and flexible and willing to work with us.
Yeah.
And that's really important for us. And it's been the reason why we've been so successful.
Yeah. Hexen, how about you?
Yeah, and I think I talked about this yesterday in a different session, but at Saks, what we're looking for is two things. Number one is time to market. So we never want to sacrifice a project that's going to run for quarters or years long. Number two is we will never sacrifice operational resiliency, right, or at the expense of our customers. So with those two things in mind, we have to pick a partner that is a SME in the area so that we're able to migrate onto Connect as quickly as possible and with zero downtime. And we're so glad that we made the decision because we were able to transition our entire contact center onto Connect in 2 months with zero downtime. I'm super, super proud of that because that really set us up for the right foundation in terms of continue to iterate and enhance on this fantastic platform.
Kim, how about you?
Yeah. Well, for us, it was last year at reInvent, hearing all of the great customer success stories. A couple of our leaders met with Neuroflash and said, "Hey, we need to check them out." We asked around, and the word on the street was they were the best partner to go with for Connect. And I was really looking for a partner that had not just Amazon Connect experience, but also brought the Salesforce experience into it because, you know, we were, that was a big part of our implementation.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so now you can tell we've clearly moved into customer experience. And I want to talk a little bit about the paths that brought you all to this product called Salesforce Service Cloud Voice. And for those that are in the audience that don't know what that is, it is a solution that was introduced to the market in July of 2020. I helped to launch it. And it's the native integration between Salesforce Service Cloud and Amazon Connect, and provides for a sort of single unified customer experience for agents and supervisors. And well, Joanna could tell you a lot more about it. So maybe I'll do this in reverse, and I'll start with Joanna to talk about what Neuroflash's path was to Service Cloud Voice, because we just kind of covered your experience there around Salesforce. So
yeah, sure. So Neuroflash started as a Salesforce partner, but the leadership team comes from Nuance Communications. So when word on the street was that AWS and Salesforce were going to collaborate on a voice channel, Neuroflash just doubled down, invested in some early projects to get the experience that they needed and the references that they needed to grow the practice really rapidly. Today, you know, we've done a lion's share of the Service Cloud Voice with Amazon Connect implementations. That has then exposed us to more AWS solutions like Amazon Connect as a standalone, the number of services that live underneath the Amazon Connect platform now, Amazon Lex for complex IVRs and bot projects, really exciting stuff. And then, you know, we're tapping into the AI and ML suite that's now playing into the contact center as well with Transcribe and Comprehend. So, yeah, just getting started, but it's been a good journey.
very exciting. All right, so ladies, challenges or problems that you were trying to solve. So to kind of take us back before you made the decision. Delia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so at First Advantage, we aim to deliver an expert and easy customer experience, and we were struggling and not quite doing that very well. And so it really served as the catalyst for our transformation. We had high transfer rates, disparate, disjointed systems, technical challenges, dropped calls of all things in a call center, which are awful. And so we decided to, go from an on-prem telephony to Amazon Connect, and the results have been fantastic. Our customers are able to get to the right place the first time, and we've got an added bonus of deflection. We're seeing deflection rates of 23 to 25%, and like I said, we weren't counting on that. So quick question, show of hands. Who in the audience has ever received unsolicited positive feedback about their IVR or the phone system?
Yeah, not many hands up.
Yeah, so I did, and for the very first time in my career, I will say a customer wrote to us and said, oh my God, we love your new phone system. It's easy to navigate and you're saving us time. And the reason why we're saving them time is because we can get them to the right place the first time.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started, so we've got lots ahead of us.
Awesome. Kim, how about you?
Well, we have a North Star vision that we are aiming for, which is to make things easy for our customers so they can get back to the things they enjoy. Calling us is probably not the top of their list of things to do. We wanted a solution that was going to get them to the right place, get their questions answered as quickly as possible. We needed something that was going to help us deliver, that great customer experience, but as also an employee experience and help with scalability. Connect was a solution that we found that would help us be able to move quickly. Service Cloud Voice brings Salesforce and Connect together, which was really important for us because already our customer service reps have a number of applications they have open on their desktop just to answer any question that might come in. And so one of the goals we have for this initiative is to create a single pane of glass. Service Cloud Voice was essential for that.
Excellent. Hexen.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is I really want to transform just the overall philosophy of customer service. What that means is as opposed to building the best-in-class customer service team possible, I think about, customer service team exists because customers experience a friction point within the journey. That's why we're here, to help them. Now, if we're able to identify those friction points and influence the overall company to fix them at the root, we're able to get it right the first time or often, right? So that's a lot of the things that we are trying to do at Saks is really identify friction points where we're able to smooth out that journey end to end. And of course, with Service Cloud Voice, we're able to collect a tremendous amount of data so that you're able to extrapolate insights. Now, on the other side, we're not just ignoring our contact center and not doing anything with it, right? So we are looking and taking advantage of the LexBot in the IVR system so that we're able to proactively service customers and tell them the information where they may not need to talk to an agent anymore. We're focusing on self-service, and we're also focusing on the agent experience with next best action, and that's, again, is single pane of glass, right, where the agent's working in, and depending on the context of the conversation, there's pop of relevant information to help them navigate within the conversation to effectively help the customers, and again, improve first contact resolution.
Excellent. So we're starting to see some themes, some common threads across how your businesses are positively impacting customer experience, and we love that bringing the power of both Amazon and Salesforce together is really helping you make that a reality. Very curious about the capabilities that have been most impactful to your organizations within the solution. And Kim, we'll start with you.
Great.
Because you've just implemented.
Yeah, well, we just launched less than 2 weeks ago for our main contact center, so it's a little early to report results, but I can tell you what we're excited about. So we are going to be launching authentication within the IVR, so the phone menu, which we hope will reduce our call handling time by up to a minute on about 40% of our calls. We're going to be introducing Voice ID, which is going to be a great customer experience capability. And then the other thing we're going to be launching is self-service, which will help reduce some basic questions that customers might call in for. They don't even have to talk to one of our CSRs. They can get that through the phone menu.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Delia.
Yeah, so our digital transformation is quite the journey, and we are taking a phased approach. And the very first phase was launching Amazon Connect, and we've launched as a standalone solution for now. And unlike Hex, it didn't take us 2 months, but it took us 4 months, and we're really excited about that. We're pleased with the speed to go live. In terms of capabilities, as the business users, we love the ability to self-serve and not really have that dependency on IT or the VoIP team for that matter. We are really excited about being able to see our customers' behavior and their intent. We are using Contact Lens for customer sentiment, and my team feels really empowered being able to see what our customers are saying and immediately being able to go into the application and tweak the system and make enhancements so that we're continuously improving upon that customer experience. Yeah, I mean, I can go on for hours here. We only have a few more minutes left.
Hexen, we're coming off of Cyber Weekend. So talk to us a little bit about how Service Cloud Voice is serving your customers.
Yep, first of all, coming out of the Cyber 5, we had 0 downtime, so that's definitely something to be celebrated. So from my personal experience, and again, I consider myself a data nerd. Like, I love data. I tell my team all the time, I can just snuggle with data, right? So with Service Cloud Voice, or just this solution, right, from Amazon Connect all the way to Salesforce, number one is that within the IVR itself, we're able to collect utterances from customer. As opposed to say, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. We're saying, what are you calling about? That is the first thing we're collecting. Before you even do anything, we want to say what customers are saying. Now, if you see customers saying representative or something else, right? Like, it gives you insights as far as how do you want to continue to modify your roadmap so you're able to get your customer as quickly as possible to the person in the right role to service them. And then also, because of the streamlined experience, when the agent picks up on the other side, it's completely streamlined where they already know what the customer's calling about, because they will say returns, right? And then the case flow is already automatically open for them. So that has really, really streamlined quite a bit from an agent standpoint. And finally, I've said this before, I do love Contact Lens. So we're doing a ton of things to experiment with. So first of all, when I say next best action, Contact Lens is the one that's triggering the signals for it to pop up on the agent side, right? And second of all, sentiment analysis, what Dali is saying. I want to see what is their overall sentiment for yesterday, versus you're waiting, like a week later to say, what is your NPS, right? And now we're also looking at automatically tagging calls, because at the end of the day, when you're manually tagging calls, it's unpredictable, right? If you do that from a system standpoint, you have the predictability, consistency, and of course, you're able to reduce agent workload.
Very cool. Love it. And I'm not going to get tired of you saying you love Contact Lens. And I didn't pay her to say that. All right, so Joanna, what are you seeing across the literally 100+ customers that you've implemented Service Cloud Voice with?
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned a lot of the common themes already. It goes without question, having a consolidated desktop with voice, digital, and case data in a single place is very powerful. It is doing things like improving CSAT, reducing handle time, the dreaded swivel chair. It is taking that away. But I think since the launch of Amazon Connect in 2017 and then the simultaneous launch of Service Cloud Voice in 2020, the most impactful part of the platform is that customers can just get to market faster. They, 2 months, 4 months. I mean, they're getting to a place really fast. We're turning months into minutes, as they say, but we really are. And then you get to now be a part of, 1,000 launch announcements, and really get to take advantage of the innovation and the pace of it. You're now, sitting kind of in the driver's seat from a customer experience standpoint, as opposed to catching up.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so heard about what has happened. Now we want to talk a little bit about what's the road ahead. You've talked a little bit about some of the things, but what do you get most excited about in the road ahead? And Hexen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so in my mind, I've got short term, midterm, and then long term. And of course, again, long term is not 6 months out. I'm talking about 3 months out, right? So the short term is right now. Because we're in peak, that means we don't release anything. But this is a perfect opportunity for us to look at data, look at the responses from agents and business value that from the first experiment that we rolled out, which is the next best action that I talked about, right? We want to see, are we actually generating business value? What are the agent experiences, and how can we tweak our backlog so that when peak is over, when code freeze is over, we're able to enhance that feature a little bit more. Midterm is I really want to transform the way that our business look at contact center performance, right? Again, it's about NPS these days. What is usually the NPS response rate? 10 to 15%. Now, how do you feel about making big strategic decisions against a data set that is only 10 to 15%? And normally, it is from your noisy customers who are really happy or extremely upset, right? So again, going to contact lens, if you're able to have sentiment for every single call, and then you're able to layer that with the NPS or select NPS that you do receive, I wonder, are we able to forecast your NPS or forecast or have a more objective view to provide to your senior leadership in terms of your overall contact center performance? So that's something that I'm going to try to tackle in the midterm. And then finally, I'm really excited about the announcement that Connect made yesterday. The agent evaluation form, right? That's in the preview stage, and I would love to sign up SACS for that because, again, from a QA standpoint, we cover about 5% typically in a contact center. Wow, 100%. Imagine a world where 100% of our calls is evaluated. What type of transformation and culture that's going to create? So I would love to participate in that and be able to provide feedback and hopefully influence the AWS backlog.
We love that. We love it when our customers get involved with innovation.
Sign us up for that too.
All right, Kim, how about you guys? I know you're just getting started on this journey.
We're just getting started, and we have some work left to do to complete our Salesforce migration. So we'll be continuing that next year, and we, and we need to evaluate also adoption on some of our self-service and see if we expand more there in the IVR. But I'm also looking forward to next year potentially. Adding in additional channels of engagement like live chat, chat bots, and things like that.
Very good. Delia?
Yeah, I'm super excited to share that we've officially kicked off phase 2. As I said, we are on a journey. We started with Amazon Connect as a standalone, and now we are implementing Salesforce Service Cloud and Voice, and we're going to carry forward Amazon Connect and benefit from all the great things that most of you all have already shared, and really move towards that omni-channel experience so that we can meet our customers at their channel of choice. And although we want to pivot from voice to chat as much as we can, we still want to take voice of the customer and meet them where they want us to meet them. Looking forward to being able to take all of the data that comes from Amazon Connect and leveraging that once it's in Salesforce. I really think it's going to have significant improvements in handle time, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and our North Star is moving towards that single pane of glass that we've all referenced. And we will continue on that journey because we do have many applications that our agents have to navigate for any single interaction. And so getting to that single pane of glass would be our end game. Yeah.
Very cool.
Really excited.
Well, we are excited to be partners with you on that journey, and I know NeuroFlash is as well. So what's in the future for NeuroFlash?
I think everyone has said it. We're just getting started. Just kicking things off, it feels like. Day one, I came from AWS and still I don't think had a grasp on all of the ways in which we would get to work with Amazon and AWS. It's been really an exciting time coming over on the other side of it and being able to partner with AWS on projects like this, which are very, building your network that way. But then all of the other things that come with this organization. Earlier this spring, we worked with the Lex team to do, IVR migration tooling and industry grammars. We work with other product teams on, what can we build next? How can we get ahead of the roadmap? How can we help? And then it's gone so far as to, we have now Amazon relationships, whether it be an Amazon team that needs help with Service Cloud, or an acquisition that needs to get over to voice. I mean, the company is, there's not a shortage of opportunity to work with Amazon Connect and with Salesforce inside of AWS, and we're uniquely qualified to help these types of customers, and it's a really exciting time for us.
Yeah, they work both with our product team, with our professional services team. They can subcontract under them, so we've sort of helped them navigate through multiple different areas, and literally every week, month, something else crops up for them, and so it's been exciting to watch the journey. When I first started working with NeuroFlash, they were 100 people, and they were sitting for a certification for contact center. And I kind of laughed because their CEO came on pretty strong and said, "We're going to be your #1 partner." And I was like, well, yeah, get in line, because there's a number of other partners that have already crossed the line here and maybe hold that. And it didn't take long before NeuroFlash did surpass all the others in terms of Service Cloud Voice implementations. So kudos to you. And now you're over, 350 or so?
Yep.
And that was just, 2+ years ago. So really, really nice. All right, amazing insights here from a very inspiring panel. It has been an absolute privilege to get to know each of you. And at Amazon, we reflect annually on the unique talents that we each bring to our teams, and we call these our superpowers. So please indulge me, ladies, for a moment while I share your superpowers with our audience. And I think some of these probably came out as they spoke today. So I wrote these about everyone. Let's see how this goes. Joanna knows women can do anything, and she's always a vocal seat at the table to drive change, bringing others along with her. Hexen is a mega juggler, not juggling balls, but able to catch everything thrown her way, from new work efforts, puppies, or kids, without disturbing the juggling harmony that's already in process. In fact, she's always eager to find the next ball to keep in the air. She's learned that the best part of the show is doing it all with elegance and a bit of flash. Delia is a single mom of twins who independently changed the pronunciation of her own name at a young age. Okay, that is so cool. I don't know anybody that's done that. She is master at aligning diverse teams toward a common goal with dignity, honesty, and respect. All right, Kim, you're up next. She's a mom of 2 and Girl Scout troop leader, achieving the superpower of staying calm in the face of adversity, providing transparency to leadership, and guiding her team through the toughest problems to deliver a solution. With Kim at the helm, anything's possible. And because they made me, I hold the superpower of being a master networker, capable of motivating cross-functional teams toward a common goal, and my favorite expression is "welcome to my extended team." All right, so it looks like we have time for a few questions. I welcome the audience to come up. I think there's mics on either side of the stage here. And while we wait for that, let me ask a couple questions to the panel. So some of us have had the opportunity to take on an interim leadership role. Anyone want to talk about some advice there on how you navigate that?
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's not an opportunity that I've been presented with, but in fact, the role that I'm in today, I applied for one role and it morphed into something much more. I started off by saying that I'm responsible for process improvement, automation, and digital transformation, and then I added the quality and the training and the analytics and the customer satisfaction and the workforce management. Well, those were add-ons. And it inspired me to just face the challenge and well, why not? What do I have to lose at this point? I know all about those things. Might as well, fold them in. and really begin to think about a shared service model for First Advantage. And quite honestly, we are moving in that direction. So no regrets. Yeah, no.
Hexton, how about you?
Yeah, negotiate. Right? The power is yours. If you are being asked to do something above and beyond, it is an opportunity for you to ask questions. What is this role about? Is there an existing team? You know, assess if it's a lose-lose situation or potentially a win-win situation. Negotiate the scope. Really understand the trade-offs. And if you are looking for a promotion in the future, hey, that's the time for you to give a hint there, right? So I would absolutely say, don't shy away from that. Understand your own capacity and negotiate.
Yeah. I have an example of that. I was working for Microsoft and they asked me to take on a second, I was a sales leader, and they asked me to take on a second district, and it happened to be a bigger district than the one that I was currently looking after. And I was like, this isn't going to be good because I'm going to be working crazy hours and it's, undefined. And so to your point, I negotiated and I said to the manager, I said, I will give you 3 months of my time managing both districts, at which time you then need to hire someone. And if at the end of 3 months you haven't found anybody for this role, then I give this district back to you. And then we'll discuss when you hire somebody whether you want them on this district or my previous one. So you're right, you can negotiate for these things, and sure enough, she did find somebody, and she found them actually very quickly because of that, sort of pending commitment that she had made to me. So yeah, definitely smart. Looks like we have a question down here.
I find that one of the biggest challenges I run into in making these large ad hoc teams work is communication, and I'd love to hear from you ladies what your challenges were in terms of getting communication going and what you might find as some of your key elements to help get the flow.
Very good. Who wants to take that?
I can try a first stab of it. So number one is that when you have an effective communication, you have to seek a common goal. Establish that, agree on that, especially if you're able to get a win-win situation, right? So when you do that, you establish that, and then you are able to set expectations. Well, perhaps that is milestones, perhaps it's scope, or cadence, right? I think that is really important, and I do think before you even have a written communication, often I would have sidebar conversations with different leaders to have the talk beforehand, so that they're not just seeing email and like, oh, what is this, right?
Tapping onto what Hexton just said, I think really having those relationships, right, whether they're horizontal or lateral or what have you, leaning into those relationships is really important, and having those sidebar conversations ahead of time so that they're not caught off guard, but that they're a part of whatever journey you're trying to go on tends to help quite a bit. So yeah, form those relationships and lean in on them.
Very good. Having just launched a product, I will tell you, stand-up meetings and very frequent communications, even if it feels like it's overkill, you're always going to catch that next person that, wasn't able to make the last meeting or just joined the company the day before. So definitely more communication is better in those sort of circumstances. Go ahead.
Actually kind of, whoa.
Hi.
Hello. So that actually was my question. But it was more around with Amazon Connect. You're going to learn a lot of information about all the other parts of your organization and what they're probably doing wrong, and it's causing people to call the contact center. And we hold the power of all the information. So it's having all those conversations and making sure that you're going to relay it to the right groups and just advice of the best way to go and present that information, because you're going to be telling teams a lot of the time how you're causing friction in the company, and we hold the power of the data. So seems pretty similar to what you guys just answered of scheduling meetings ahead of time, giving heads up, but kind of piggybacking off of that.
I think working with customers who have done this very well and customers who have not done this very well, you have to strike a fine balance between engaging the people who are on the front lines. Just ask an agent about the calls that make them miserable. Ask an agent about things that happen in their day. You'll get a lot of insight by including them in the conversation, but also don't make an evaluation a 50-person experience. Right? At some point, somebody has to take ownership of what we're going to do as a company, and it has to be a top-down initiative in order for it to work. And there needs to be that buy-in. So striking the balance is hard. There's like no formula for it, but certainly just, evaluate it in a way with, use customer references always. Use the power of innovation and speed. Those things will help you kind of make that direction, and then just ask the people on the front lines.
Yeah.
Just one more thing. This is CME, and she actually is part of my Voice of Customer team, but I definitely did not plan that question. So our Voice of Customer team is responsible to provide feedback to the rest of the organization, again, to influence a change. One of the things we want to, and she's done a fantastic job in terms of building positive relationships by providing data that they need. But one of the things I want to do in the future is that with the pandemic, what happens is that agents are working from home, so it's difficult to do the side-by-side listening. But now I think we're coming back to a place we might be having a hybrid situation, right? So now, what if we create a workshop or every quarter where we have different leaders come into the call center, pick up phones, right? Talk to the customer, deal with the problems. So I think that is a great way for them to really understand the pain and be able to streamline that customer experience.
Yeah, very good. All right, well, we are out of time, so stick around because we'll be here afterwards, and we don't want the conversation to stop here. We view this as the beginning of a broader forum to share stories, make connections, advance thinking about women, DE&I, and customer experience. So hit us up on LinkedIn, watch the wires for more opportunities to hear from these and other leaders. And I just want to leave you with the opportunity to check out other Connect sessions that are still going on here at reInvent, and join us this evening, if you would like, at the Business Applications reception at the Encore at the Wynn. And at Amazon, we build better sessions based on customer feedback. So please, please, please take time to offer your feedback today. And on behalf of everyone at reInvent and AWS, and on behalf of the panel, I say thank you so very much today.